40k Fireside podcast, where we discuss everything to do with competitive Warhammer 40k with your hosts Vik VJ and David Gaylord.
Hello there and welcome everyone. Welcome back. I am just back from the ITT where we got 4th place, undefeated. Had a great time, but man, I'm a little bit tired. And I don't know if you're feeling the same way, but after the ITT tournament, I finished my 5th game and boy, I was just ready to play something else. I was playing the same list I played at Nottingham with a few changes. It was like 140 guardsmen and stuff like that, and man, I was absolutely just hammered by the end of that tournament. For some reason, I was grinding out every single game for points, and then on top of that, just rolling dice consistently and moving models and stuff. It was kind of backbreaking. So I thought, well, if you're stuck in that position, maybe it'd be a good time to talk about some of the new detachments and some of the new units. It'll be the two places which you're going to be most unfamiliar with. Now, before then, what I'm going to tell you is that a lot of this is taken from the Guard Masterclass that I did on the 26th, for which we have the VOD available for £30 at 40kfireside@gmail.com. I'll have a link in the description. We had like 25 people come to the actual workshop on Discord. I've had a bunch of people buy it online. I know a ton of people gotten so much good value out of it. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today will be covered in there. And I'm actually going to be going in talking about one particular slide in the presentation, which talks about the detachments and their playstyles. So if that interests you, if this content interests you, pop over onto the PayPal or send us an email at 40kfireside. It's a good way to get your head around what detachments you might be interested in. And if you're looking at buying some models, perhaps doing some hobbying, it'll be a really good way of getting into that as well, because I've got particular opinions on which models I do think are good, which ones I don't think are good. So if you don't want to go waste some money, maybe listen to this first. But let's crack on. We're going to be talking today about two topics. Two, but over 3 parts. We're going to be talking about the new guard models, what's the best way to use them, where they kind of rate, and then we're going to be talking about the detachments after that, in the tier list as well. And then on top of that, we're going to be chatting about how I see them in my detachment matrix as well. So let's jump on over. I've had quite a bit of practice now working with these new detachments and new units, and I've definitely formed some opinions of what I think is good and what I think is bad. So we can probably just go straight from the top. Now we've got the core line of new models, which is the Krieg line, which is Lord Dreir, the combat engineers, the Krieg command squad, and then the Krieg heavy weapon teams. We've also got the Krieg artillery battery as well, and we'll get to that soon. So those are completely, well, not completely new models, but are a completely refreshed range, and for all intents and purposes, new data sheets for us. Oh, I apologize. I've got 2 Krieg weapon squads. So let's just crack off with the absolute potato of the bunch. I'll kick it off maybe at the bottom. This might be the worst one out of all what we're going to talk about today, and unfortunately, it comes with a gorgeous model, Lord Marshal Dreir. The air tier is kind of a question mark in terms of like, well, you're playing him, but what value is it really bringing? This guy's datasheet is pretty poor, unfortunately. I don't really understand the philosophy for how Games Workshop has done his output profiles, because they're quite abysmal. Let me just load up my guard PDF really quick here as well. Let's pop on over, and I'm going to bring up his datasheet in case you're unaware of it. Share this tab instead, and boom. Okay, let's find the man. The man. Lord Marshal Dreir, here we go. Okay, great. So, 100 points, remember, on this guy. 100 points. Toughness 4, 4 up invuln, 6 wounds. So not even 8 wounds that Lord Solar gets. 0 shooting capabilities, whereas Lord Solar gets 2 shots at -2/2. But let's go into the most important part, his melee profile. Now, his melee profile is just 621 at anti-infantry 4+. And I know he's got dev wounds, but let me just pitch this to you. If you're going to play him by himself because you don't want to have an enormous Death Rider unit attached to him and increase his points even more, his anti-infantry 4+ doesn't actually do anything more or less when he's attacking an infantry unit. I mean, what infantry units, let me just turn my phone off, what infantry units these days actually have toughness greater than 6? I mean, it's pretty rare, right? So basically, this combo does absolutely nothing when he's not leading a unit. Uh, in fact, I take that back. He does still get dev wounds when he makes a charge, so not terrible, but not typically exciting. Let's just think about this, for example. He has absolutely 0 rerolls, so he has 6 attacks hitting on 2s, 5 hits. You're going to get 2.5 4s, so it's going to be 2 dev wounds on average. And some extra attacks here. I mean, the extra attacks are also weapon skill 4, so you probably will wound a marine once on average there. Actually, maybe not even once on average there. So his output is absolutely abysmal. We look at his order profile. For some reason, he has 3 orders. Now, I get it, he's like a Lord Marshal commander. 3 orders is really good there, but at the same time, is it really needed? I'm not sure I understand it. Regiment orders are super easy to come by, so I don't think it's really that useful. Now, he does get back up on a 2+, but he gets D3 wounds remaining. I mean, D3 is okay, but in all seriousness, you could charge him. You could shoot him and then just tank shock him, and on average, you're going to kill him. He's going to come back with average of 2 wounds. So, very easy to kill as well. 100 points. A big miss, in my opinion. I also don't think that the unit he can join is particularly good. If you think about this, I mean, they're good at killing Eldar models, of course, but basically everything is. Let's say you join 5 Death Riders, which technically had a new model range, so I'll kind of include them in this, but they didn't change at all. They just have some really basic attacks at like 4-1-1. Now, they're going to get dev wounds, but only on 6s. So you've got a unit which his base size is quite large. Then you've got 5 guys that follow him. They, on average, kill probably like, I don't know, 2.5 Marines. If they AOC, do they even kill 2 Marines? It's really iffy. To which point you've invested upwards of something like 160 points in this unit if it didn't get shot beforehand as well. Then he can get back up on a 2+ after you've shot his entire unit to death. Comes back to 2 wounds and then they tank shock him to death afterwards. It's a pretty tough sell for me. Let me know if you've had good experience with them, but it's a shame that they've released such a gorgeous model and have made it quite poor. Okay. I'm just gonna have to reshare for some reason. Give me 1 second, guys. Is it gonna share? No, it's not gonna cooperate. All right, it's gonna be hard for me to bounce back and between the things. You're gonna see my big ugly face in a second. There we are. Alrighty, and we are back. Okay, so that's why I've got him in the kind of tier. Like, it's kind of questionable whether or not you're playing him. So, Okay, but he does bring some friends along. He brings some friends that are absolutely incredible. I'm going to talk about the Death Corps of Krieg heavy weapon team. Now, this unit is exceptionally good for a couple of reasons. One of which is primarily because as Guard, we have a very limited amount of combat units. The one I've just described is absolutely terrible, so that goes to show. Realistically, we've got Bulgarin, which are, okay, they did get better as well, but could definitely come down in points. We've got Rough Riders, which countercharges as unreliable as it probably gets. I think we've all been there. 10 attacks, 6 hits, 4 wounds, and whatever, for a 10-man unit. But now we've got these guys, and if we're thinking about like deterring against combat armies, they bring a lot to the table. So you play them with the Flamer, and I typically in most of my lists have 2 of these at a minimum, and I'll put 1 in reserve, and I'll put 1 starting on the board. Now they only move 4, but you can order them move, so you can be +3 to move, so they can move 7, or you can embark them in a transport and then disembark them after that. Now, out of a Taurox, potentially fantastic here, right? You can advance the Taurox, disembark them, flame something, and then Overwatch. Now, the Overwatch is the most brutal part of this. Their flamers are 5-1-2 at 18 inches, d6 shots each, right? So you can imagine on a lot of boards you might play, you can disembark, flame something, or just move flame something, or arrive from reserve and hit something. And then after that, you control an 18-inch space on the board, which is huge. Super tough for combat armies to play around. On these guys, you're going to be averaging about, 10 shots. And then, if you're wounding Marines, it's going to be 7 wounds at -1. That's just an Overwatch. At 75 points, they're absolutely excellent. I actually think these guys are a little bit too good. I would drop the flamer range down from 18 to 12. 18 feels really, really powerful. Like, it's really hard if you've got them in even just behind a centralized place in the board. They cover almost the entire board at that point. They're going to cover 18 both ways, which is going to be like 36 between them. Really powerful. I love them. I don't play them with any other gun variant because then you have to hit. So if you just play them with the flamer, they're completely independent. Now you might be saying, David, wait, hold up. They also have the shoot on death. So on a 3+, they can shoot on death, which is good. But in my experience, typically your opponent either just charges or tags them, or they're just going to kill them in combat. So the 3+ shoot on death is nice. I find that people usually overvalue it. And if they're going to shoot them, they're usually shooting from outside of 18, or they're shooting with a toughness 10 unit that isn't as powerful. But you don't have to shoot the target that shot you. So in addition to that, if you do put them in the middle of the board and where they've got a unit that they maybe put no Overwatch on or something like that, or they've just got another unit around the side, then you can potentially shoot that back. Nice. So that's the Krieg heavy weapon teams. Definitely a winner. Okay, let's go something in the middle. Okay, let's talk about the Krieg combat engineers. I think I might get a bit of flack for this one, but at 35 points, these were probably one of the most broken units printed ever. At 70 points, I think they're just okay. Now, let me go through my reasoning for this. If you've listened to me talk about Guard for a while, then you'll probably know I like to benchmark units against each other. And for 70 points, they're competing against one of the best data sheets in the book, right? The Cadian Jungle Fighters. So you can either play 5 engineers or 10 Cadian Jungle Fighters. Now, you have Ursula Creed in your army, so Cadian Jungle Fighters can oftentimes grenade for free, which is good. But the Krieg engineers get the obviously remote mine, which is the main selling point. They're both Scout 6, but Cadian Jungle Fighters, you get a 10-man squad, which is obviously very important. Okay, so let's think about it. How good is the remote mine? The remote mine. I can think of a couple of places you'd really want it. If your opponent has a Star Weaver, great. Then one unit has a potential to just kill a Star Weaver. Okay, that's awesome. If your opponent has a Rhino, one unit doesn't kill a Rhino. 2 units on average uh, doesn't kill a Rhino because it's a 3+ to hit it. 3 units on average should probably kill a Rhino. Okay, so to kill a Rhino behind a wall, which is something you're probably going to want to do because you're primarily a shooting based army, you're going to need to play 3 units of these guys, all be within 12 of that Rhino, and then triple robot bomb them. Now, that's kind of a lot of investment. That's 210 points just to kill a Rhino behind a wall, which is powerful, especially if you've got indirect behind that. But it's a big sell. For 210 points, you could play a Taurox and Cadian, for example, which has a great chance of knocking out a Rhino. You can grenade for free, and a 5+, you can get it back. Meltamine. Meltamine's going to do like 4 on average. Grenade is 3. You just need to put 3 wounds through with Cadian now that hit on 2s as well. So Cadian are pretty reliable at getting the Rhino as well. So, obviously you have to be within line of sight for the Cadian, but at the same time, they also have a decent save, so it's not the worst there as well. So, just for me, the situation where I do like the Death Core of Krieg Engineers is if you have 5-point spear and you're already running 30 Catachan, consider upgrading them. Maybe if the meta becomes a lot more vehicle orientated, then just one unit is just good, pure value. Like, if Custodies were dominating everywhere, right? Then this would be really good, right? You would just be like, well, I've got this one unit and it has a chance to deal like 5 mortal wounds. Okay, great. So it's an interesting unit. I'm not sold on them being fantastic. They could potentially be good against maybe something like orcs, but then again, you're dealing mortal wounds, so the breakpoint to kill a truck is still the same. The main problem I have is that to kill something on a specific game plan, you've got to have 3 of these guys to do it consistently. And I like consistency in game plans. So that's where I've got them. I've got them in just okay. I mean, okay is okay. Is like, why are you playing this unit? So that's where I've got them. Speaking of units, why are we playing? The Death Core of Krieg Command Squad. This unit is pretty bad. Basically, Games Workshop, in my opinion, hasn't really done a great job of differentiating the command squads. They all have like a very similar element to them, right? Like they all have the Voxcaster. They've all got the the Master Vox, for example. They've got the standard. They've got the Medipack, and they've got the I don't know, I guess the Deathcore Krieg one has something different for a change. So it's got the servo scribes, which you can order one additional order, which isn't terrible. The main problem with these guys is that they the Krieg have lost their ability to get the 5-up Feel No Pain, and these guys do have a 6-up Feel No Pain, but it's only against mortal wounds. So it's really hard to get a huge Feel No Pain on your 20-man blocks anymore, which is a hard selling point. I do think thematically they're quite cool, but their special ability is when you contain an officer, you can target your unit for stratagems even if they're battle shocked. I mean, when does that come up? Not a huge amount. So that's where I've got not much more to say about these guys. I'm just going to look here in terms of their special weapon ratio, as I've kind of got it in my head, right? They can join Krieg combat engineers, but okay. They of course order one order, but can do one situationally. One veteran can have their special weapon swapped out. So typically, why you would want to play a command squad is that you would want to have a really high density of special weapons in that command squad. So I think the Cadian command squad, for example, can have like 4 or 5 special weapons. Like that's really how you want to play that squad. This one doesn't really have much of a selling point, so I'm going to put it in the air. Okay, alrighty. Let's go to its counterpart. Let's go to the Catachan command squad. This is actually okay. This unit is not bad. Now, the Catachan Command Squad is new, of course. I'm just going to bring it up here to refresh my notes. But this is a good example of a squad that can take a lot of different special weapons because it's taken like 4 for a squad, I think. But it does have a limit in that it joins a slightly worse unit. Okay, so the Command Squad ability, all your weapons gain assault. Okay, pretty good. And actually, it's just it doesn't even have to lead the unit. It's just while this unit contains an officer, unit models in your unit gain the assault keyword, and they have Scout 6. So you could just run the command squad just as is, and it's actually not terrible. Now you can run any guardsman can swap out their las pistol, las gun for one of the following: flamer, heavy flamer. Heavy flamer is not bad. I mean, heavy flamer is 511. And then you've got melter gun, plasma gun, sniper rifle. So you could take flamer, heavy flamer, melter gun, plasma gun, and you get orders on top of that as well. So actually not bad. Disembarking from a transport with these guys isn't terrible because they already scout 6. And then if you contain a midi pack, which you might depending on what special weapon you want to take, you can. I don't think you can swap out. One guardsman can swap out the. I'm not going to confidently say you can swap into the midi pack then into the special weapon, but let me know if you can. That'd be pretty cool if you can. So you can take like a midi pack and a special weapon. I'm pretty sure in the past you haven't been able to do that, but maybe you can. But you could take the midi pack to make them better, right? That just lets you revive units. But you're probably going to go down to the last Catachan commander who won't have the midi pack. So, it's kind of meh. Okay, so not bad. I think okay. It's got some uses for it. For example, in Siege Detachment or Recon, Siege, you can play the Furious Fusillade stratagem to give you +1 attacks because you're now a character unit. Pretty useful. Like, that's a good target for that, right? That plus just Catachans, not a terrible target. Okay, let's crack on. Let's stick with Catachans, and let's go with the Catachan heavy weapon team. I'm just thinking, should we put something in nice here? No, if it doesn't deserve to be there, it doesn't deserve to be there. The Catachan heavy weapon team is actually not terrible. I'm going to put it ahead of the command squad. Now, what you can do with these guys is one basic combo. You play them with the las cannons, okay? So you scout 6, you order them. They have heavy las cannons. They can move 6, counter stationary, shoot them. They get reroll 1s to hit and wound when they target a vehicle. So you can have a unit that's hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, and wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s with 3 las cannon shots. Not the worst thing in the world. Considering they're 50 points, you could maybe move them, get a cheeky angle, hit on 3s, rerolling 1s, wound on 3s, rerolling 1s. And it's a pretty low investment, to be fair. So a lot of UKTC boards, that's actually not impossible to achieve. Just being able to pre-game 6 and shoot is perfectly fine. So they're an interesting choice. I would say they're okay. And if you want to play them, nice. If they can put some deployment pressure on your opponent, that's perfectly fine as well. I think on WTC that'd be a little bit better. Just for thinking about those search and destroy maps, for example, or even the Crucible maps, then you'd be able to get those pre-game move lines a little bit easier as well. Nice. Alrighty, let's get back up to the top. Rogadorn Tank Commander. That's what that is if you hadn't worked it out by now. The new datasheet. New datasheet, technically. This guy's good. This guy's very good. In fact, it's difficult for me to say which of the two of these is better because they both. You can start whatever list you want and just put either of these datasheets in there, and your list is in a good position. Now, why is that? Okay, so let's just take a detachment like combined arms or recon. Yeah, let's take recon. Recon detachment where it gets almost zero benefits. You can play this, and it can just sit on your backfield with OC5, shell downfield all game, and that's perfectly fine for it. It can order 2 transports consistently, or it can order itself from something else. You're getting good value out of it. At 265, it's probably going to live to the end of the game because you've got a lot of forward momentum pressure as well. Then, if you play it in things like Hammer of the Emperor, you can get 4 rerolls to hit within 12, move through walls, auto advance, fall back and shoot, advance and shoot. It gets insanely good there. It is very, very reliable now. Well, it's more reliable, but it's certainly more reliable because it can order itself as well. So it's a very independent piece. It also just doesn't really mind getting tagged in combat. Let's say you're playing against like Eldari. So they tag you in combat, you've got 6 stubber shots, and you've got 6 multi-melter shots. And you've got 2 autocannon shots. You're going to shoot all of that into combat. And if you position yourself well, hopefully you can shoot out of combat with it as well. It's a very large model, so you're going to be able to shoot into combat and then out of combat in another angle if you've positioned yourself well. OC5 makes it a good breakpoint as well. So if someone's going to charge and slingshot onto your home objective, it's very unlikely for them to take it off. Not only that, but it has the hit damage wound roll, which makes it even more consistent on top of that. Really nice. Is it better than the Krieg heavy weapon teams? Okay, here's my reasoning here. I'm going to put it behind the Krieg heavy weapon teams because I don't think anything in the datasheet should be changed. I don't think it should go up in points. I don't think it should go down in points. I think it's just a strong unit, but it's a nice centerpiece, which is just all round good. Guard hasn't usually had something that's just all round good, whereas I actually do think that the heavy weapon team should be changed from 18 inches to 12. That's just me. 18 inches to 12, maybe knock off 5 points on them. Because I don't actually think that's a great play experience. Adorn is just big and tanky in fear, I think. Alrighty. Alright, don't blame me if it gets nerfed, guys. Okay, let's go for the artillery, the Krieg artillery. Where do I think this should be? Ooh, it's a tough one because it really competes with the field ordnance battery at a very similar price point, and it is big. Oh boy, this base is really big, and it's a singular base, so you can't really hide it half on a ruin, half off. But it's got an upside. It does have like a 3-up save at like toughness 7 at 10 wounds, so it's kind of like tank, which is a bit unusual given what it looks like. I guess it's got those sandbags there, so extra fortification. Ooh, is it better than these two? It's a tough one. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say there's more use cases for playing the 2 Cadian variants than there is for this one here. Now, here's my logical reasoning. I've played this unit quite a few times, and in Siege it is obviously the best. And in Bridgehead Strike, it's reasonably okay. If you've got 5 points, change it. You need to, upgrade something from 90 to 95, or you need 5 points, downgrade a field ordnance battery to this. That's okay. Now, do not play the 12 -2 flat 3 profile. That is awful. It's never going to kill a tank, even if you strip cover on it. Well, of course, theoretically it can. You're going to roll, the one time you roll 6 shots, you're going to hit 3 times and wound, once or twice. They're going to save one, it's going to deal 3 damage. When you could be running the field ordnance battery profile, which I think off the top of my head is D6 plus 3. I'm going to look it up really quick. But it's 8-1-2. Now, compared to a field ordnance battery, it doesn't get the blast. So let's just do the math here really quick. Because that's going to be the main competition you're going to be running it for, right? I do think the model is gorgeous, though. So, that's a good argument for playing it as well. Right, now you're going to want to look at the heavy mortar. Okay, so it's D6 plus 3, so it's pretty consistent. And then 8-1-2 means it's going to be averaging about, it does have blast. If you're shooting 5 Marines, it's going to average 6-7 shots, which is, so it's a 3 plus 3 plus 1 for blast, 7 shots. In Bridgehead, it's probably going to average about, 4 hits and then 3 wounds, something like that. Because it does get +1 to wound, which is nice on top of, versus the field ordnance battery. But the field ordnance battery obviously gets sustained, which makes it way more reliable. Basically gives it +1 to hit. Okay, so you can battle shock a unit with this, but realistically, that's not super relevant, I don't think. Guard doesn't really need to battle shock units as much, because they're not going into combat. So it doesn't matter if they use strats for that. Now, there is the multiple rocket launcher, which is 211, and that is D6 plus 3, anti-infantry 3 plus, blast, heavy, indirect fire. I don't know why you would ever play that. It really actually makes me wonder why they even print. Does Games Workshop actually think when they design some weapon profiles? Because, oh boy, that thing is terrible. I mean, the heavy quad launcher at 2d6, 501 is maybe arguably slightly better, twin linked, if you're fighting against Eldar or something like that. But yeah, you're going to want to go with the heavy mortar, but at the same time, it's probably just a lot worse than the field ordnance battery. Okay, cool. So that's been the main units of the new stuff. So if you're going to go out and buy some models, I would recommend Rogal Dawns, of course, and heavy weapon teams. Go buy 2 to 3 units of that. I think they're really solid. Then we've got the Krieg combat engineers, which yeah, maybe 1 unit of is okay. And these, the Krieg command squad and Lord Marshal Dreir and the Death Riders, I would not recommend buying, which is a shame because that's basically the new combat patrol. Okay, awesome. Let's go through and talk about some of the detachments now. Okay, cool. So, which do I think are the strongest and why? Okay, so I'm going to go to this tab here. I'm going to click present. Hopefully, I'm going to check on EV marks. Cool. Right, this is a slide from the masterclass which I overwent. So this is designed to tell people how strong the detachment is, what the playstyle is, and how easy that is to execute. Now, this is based off my interpretation, having played all of these detachments for the class, and having played it twice and iterated upon a list. Okay, so we've got Bridgehead. Now, Bridgehead is what I would call a dynamic army. It's got uppy downy, it's got advance and shoot, it's got movement. Uh, all around, Bridgehead is very strong. Do I think it's the best army in the game? No. Do I think it's top 3? Somewhere around there, maybe in third, fourth position. Its macro strategy is it's aggressive and it looks for opportunities. So you are trying to play aggressive and you are then trying to get opportunities where your opponent hasn't screened correctly or they've left a unit hanging out where you can shoot it from 24 inches away, etc. etc. Directness is the kind of game plan that it has. It does want to play aggressive and look for opportunities in almost every game it plays. The competitive level for me, I imagine I could go at a UKTC major, super major, whatever, 5-0 with it. I do think it is reasonably difficult to play, and we've actually seen Bridgehead not do anywhere near as well as it has appeared on the scene, compared to its comparative perceived strength. I think it's won 3 events or something. Now, Siege, the Siege detachment. Playstyle, I would say, is pretty medium in the board. So it's typically going to be something like your combined arms. It is going to be more static than other ones. In fact, Siege is definitely the most static. Sorry. So in terms of playstyle, you've got a good amount of indirect, and then you've got a very direct plan on top of that as well, which is really good. It's kind of defensive plus scoring orientated. You want to hold indirect and then out OC your opponent on their objective once or twice, and then hold back and castle up. Directness, it's not necessarily obvious how to play it because your game plan isn't to thunderously be aggressive towards your opponent, much like Bridgehead is. So I've put a B for that. Competitive level, now I think Siege is one of the weaker detachments, so I put it 4 and 1. Difficulty, I wouldn't say it's super hard. You're going to strip cover on 3 units, or you're going to put 3 units in stealth, or you're in a terrible matchup on a terrible board mission deployment, and you go, okay, I would really like to hit some 5+s to slow my opponent down. So not particularly difficult to play. Only has about 1 or 2 core stratagems as well. Okay, Mechanized Assault. This is my favorite detachment of them all. The next tournament I'm going to play Mechanized Assault. It's probably Manchester or something like that. I love this army. I love this detachment. I think it's super awesome. It's very dynamic. All your stratagems you use are a reactive move, jump back in, advance and shoot, get out after you disembark, etc., etc. You're playing like 5 transports. It's the same as Bridgehead. Like you're trying to find aggressive opportunities and you're trying to outplay your opponent as well with a combination of like reactive move onto OC objectives, Overwatch. Its directness is probably B plus because once you figure out where to put your transports and how to play them, that is a kind of set game plan. Competitive level 5-0, definitely. Difficulty is very high, though. This is going to be a detachment that's going to heavily reward player skill and investment of understanding matchups and the map layouts. I love it. Okay, Recon. Pretty static. I mean, I know it's got a reactor move in there, but realistically, you're moving infantry up the board consistently. Now, its macro strategy is 100% primary denial and board control. Directness is very direct. You're trying to execute your macro strategy the same way every single game, more or less. You need to move block and string out and do as much as possible with this army. The damage output is very low, so you're going to want to make sure that you're winning through points in the game and not getting attritioned out too fast. Competitive level, I think I could go 4-1, but I think Recon is one of the most uh, opponent dependent detachments, so to speak. If your opponent has great melee and just disrespects you, then it can be very hard to win this. If they've got a combined arms that has like chaff shooting and melee, then you're in a load of trouble. Lord forbid they can jump over your models. Gets really tough really quickly. Admin is very difficult for this army, which is why I would not recommend playing it unless you have very experienced in move blocking, stringing out units, 2-inch and 2-inch and 2-inching, knowing all your special weapons are, etc. Yeah, very tough. And apart from that, the primary denial and control, once you know where your big blobs are supposed to go, I'd say it's about 7.5 out of 10. Okay, we've got the combined regiment, which I guess we're all familiar with at this point. Medium playstyle, it's combined arms. You can put a bit of indirect there and there if you want. It's a board control army at the end of the day. You're trying to get early tempo with reinforcements, and you're trying to, probably use that detachment ability as much as possible. So your scions are going to try and line up against infantry. Your tanks are going to try and line up against other mechanized units. And then you're going to try and get an early primary advantage and curl up in a ball a little bit defensively and move block your opponent as well. So it's very all-rounded. Directness is probably B+. You're going to try and execute that a lot. Competitive level, I've put 4-1 for combined arms. Difficulty, 7 out of 10. It's more difficult than Siege and more difficult than Hammer of the Emperor. All right, Hammer of the Emperor, or as I like to call it, Hammer Time. This detachment rocks. This detachment is super awesome, by the way. If you're looking at getting into guard, or you're coming back into the codex, then this is the detachment for you. If you're worried about some of these armies like Bridgehead and Mechanized not really gelling with you, Hammer of the Emperor should be right up your alley. I don't actually know if static is the right way to describe this. I would probably just put this as the fastest detachment. This is actually the fastest detachment in the Old Guard Codex. Reason being, you can play Tauroxes, which you can advance and disembark. So you can auto-advance 6 inches, move through walls, disembark. Then you've got an advance and shoot stratagem, and all your tanks naturally advance 6 anyway. So turn 1, you can get really aggressive ball control. You can move you can just yeet a Rogal Dawn, which you're going to play 2 of in this, straight through walls, 16 inches, smash someone on an objective, like really, really powerful. And you can also get +1 AP within 12, so it kind of emphasizes you getting up close. Now it's an aggressive, direct style of play, and it has quite a static element to it. You're playing 2 Rogal Dawns, like 3 Russes, some transports as well on top of that. It's going to be quite hard for your opponent to chew through them if they don't have the right profiles. One of your Dawns also rerolls 1s, and one of them has a 6-up Feel No Pain. Very direct, like I've said. Definitely 5-0 level. Difficulty 6.5. It's got a lot of forgiving elements to it, which is why it's very strong. Fallback and shoot is one of the best printer stratagems in there. So yeah, there you go. This is a good overview of like the viable builds and attachments. Feel free to screenshot this. It's just my look on it. And then maybe let's go back to the tier list and see where I would slot them. So this is going to be... I'll pull these off. Okay. Whoa, this is going to be tough. Now, there's going to be a lot of controversy around this one, I can already tell. Recon, I'm going to put that in the category. I know why you're playing Recon, because thematically it's really cool, but the stratagems are weak, the detachment rule is weak, and it emphasizes you playing weak units. That's just my assessment. Let's start and keep going. Siege Regiment. Do I think Siege Regiment is better than Combined Arms? I think Combined Arms is okay. Okay. I'm going to put Combined Arms at okay. It did get buffed, and this really depends on something. I think Combined Arms and Siege Regiment are very close together, but I'm going to put Siege Regiment at the bottom of nice, and I'm not going to get ahead of myself here. Combined Arms is just stock standard. I think if you're going to go into a tournament, which is how I view these lists, if you're going to go into a tournament, I would probably say that Siege Regiment has a more surprise factor to it and allows you to execute a game plan that is a bit more unique. Put Rogaldorns in stealth. Okay, they're really hard to kill after that. Strip cover, which is an insane detachment rule, by the way. Just picking 3 units on the battlefield, strip cover, is basically just +1 AP against 3 targets. Very, very powerful. Those are the 2 primary ones that you want to use. In fact, most of the time I just use strip cover, unless you're like within 12 and you can't do that. So, getting back to combined arms, it's good, but it's known. Fields of Fire to get better. It did get some better stratagem rules. I think the most interesting way to explore this detachment is just trying to build around the 2 CP officers can order anything. Just playing a bunch of Lehman Russes and trying to stat check people that way, maybe. Reinforcements are still powerful, but Sentinels were also nerfed, which is probably the reinforcement target I'd be looking for now. But you can still reinforce like a Taurox using Kasrkin. That's probably the way to build it. The Scions, I found that you could bring the Scions in on like turn 3, but Scions actually got worse in this detachment because they don't reroll to hit now, which is what you'd rather have to Overwatch people with. However, I would love to play the Sentinels in here. Like I said before, missing my point. Scions are good here, but I typically find you bring them in on turn 3-ish, and then they don't die, and then you don't reinforcement. So I'd be using Kasrkin in this detachment if I could. Okay, back to Siege Regiment. Siege Regiment does have some powerful abilities to it. It has some really interesting things going for it. You could argue it has the strongest detachment rule. Personally, I think that's probably still Bridgehead or Mechanized, but I could definitely take the argument that Siege Regiment has the most powerful detachment rule. Straight up, it's very reliable. It does the same thing every time. It doesn't really matter what your opponent does. It's very hard to play around. Now it has it has 2 like good stratagems, but it has a lot of very poor stratagems. The 2 ones are pretty conditional as well. You're looking at Flare Burst, where you can reroll the hit roll within 12 if you're an Astra Militarum character unit, and then you're looking at Furious Fusillade, which is 1 CP. Platoon unit can get +1 to the attack characteristics. So you can go with like a Cadian Castellan. I think Kaskins have platoon. I'm gonna double check here. There is some combo where you can use like a command squad plus a big squad. You can get +1 attacks, +1 rapid fire, and then use 4 rerolls to hit. It's 2 CP. It's a little bit conditional, and it is pretty good. That's what you want to be using, I think. Let me just double check. Yeah, Kaskin are not platoon. They're regiment. Platoon is just for the battle line. You can still get 4 rerolls to hit with Kaskin, which is still pretty solid as well. But I think you really want to be trying to punch something with like a rapid ingress, a 20-man unit, or like a Catachan jungle fighter squad with like a command squad with a melter that's joining like Cadian shock troops with melters. Get like +1 shots on your melters, 4 rerolls to hit, and going something like that. So that's the Siege Regiment. Strong, but okay. Now, I've got 3 in the hell here. Okay. If I had to be perfectly honest on what I thought was the strongest, it's pretty close between the 3 of these remaining. So I'm just going to put them all 3 in Hellier, and I'm going to explain why you, as an individual, may rate one higher than the other. Okay, Bridgehead is very strong, but Bridgehead, in my opinion, is actually quite easy to tech against, and a lot of armies have general capabilities of teching against it. You can play more transports. You could play infiltrate denial. You could play more chaff shooting. You could play a bit of Overwatch. All of those 4 things, a lot of armies have a combination of either 2 of those 4 things that they can lean into play. We've got Hammer of the Emperor. So back to Bridget. It is also very expected in the meta. So you're going to be walking into a tournament where it's expected to be played against, and people can tech against you. It's a tough proposition. Whereas I genuinely view the power level of all 3 of these to be very similar. Okay, let's think about Hammer of the Emperor. It's got a very direct game plan and has got the most powerful stratagem in the entire codex, which is fall back and shoot. Right. So completely changes the way that you can play and hold primary, because you can put a Lehman Russ, just put a Vanquisher. Put a Vanquisher on your expansion with some Ogryn behind it or whatever. They're going to charge your Vanquisher. You're going to go, great, mate, I still hold the point. Fall back my Vanquisher and shoot you. Awesome. Or yeet my Rogal Dawn forward with a 4-up Invan, 6-up Feel No Pain, hammer you on the objective. You might crack me down to like 6 wounds, fall back and shoot you, hammer your objective again. Really powerful. How about just yeet the Torux 21 inches through buildings, disembark stuff on your opponent's home field objective? Awesome, man. What are you going to do about it? Really powerful. I think Hammer, if I wanted to just do my best and make a top cut and score a lot of points, I would probably play Hammer of the Emperor at a tournament. That's just me. So I'm going to put Hammer of the Emperor ahead. But I'm not a tryhard, so I'm going to play Mechanized Assault. I actually played a game on 6++ stream. I played against Davies Tyranids. It was a fantastic game. Mechanized Assault is so awesome to play. You rock up to the table, your opponent reads your list. It looks like a total pile of garbage. It's like 5 transports, like a 10 man of this, a 10 man of that, some rattlings, like a bunch of random stuff, and you're just like, how does this do damage? But oh boy, if your opponent is on an objective, this detachment does insane damage. So let's say, for example, your opponent's on an objective that you want to just out OC them and dig them out behind a wall or something, right? Well, you move your Taurox there, you advance it, you disembark your Ogryn, you use 1 CP, full rerolls to hit and wound. Your Ogryn are hitting on 4s with full rerolls to hit, which is 18 shots, by the way. Then they're wounding on, if it's 5 Marines, they're wounding on 2s because you're strength 5, 5, 2, 2. So you're going to get an average of 75% conversion on 18 shots, which is, I don't know, roughly like 14, 13 hits. Then you're getting basically 100% conversion on top of that. So you're getting like 13 wounds at 522. Really good. Let's say they've got like a Rhino. You're just going to crank through 50% of your wounds at 522 onto your Rhino because you're +1 to wound. Really awesome. I mean, this detachment is very good against combat armies. You can jump back into transport. You can react to move your transport back, and so you can jump back in when you're charged, for example, and you can react to move your transport to get better OC. And they have to spend time killing your stuff in your transport, which now you just are disembarked and you shoot them in your turn. Hey, it's a win-win. You can play Krieg heavy weapon teams, which is quite good in there because you get +1 to wound as well. Very spicy. I'm going to put Mechanized ahead of Bridgehead Strike. I think Mechanized, you can actually have a good game into Bridgehead, but I think Mechanized is actually going to be really good into a lot of stuff coming into the meta. That's just my personal opinion. Take it or leave it wherever you want. Hammer of the Emperor is awesome. Hammer Time. Build some Hammer Time lists. You're going to love it. Mechanized Assault, just give it a try. If you've got just a random collection of guard units lying around, Mechanized Assault is the one for you. If you've got like 2 Chimeras and 2 Tauroxes and just random 10-man units, you can make a very competitive army with this. What I would say is also, a side note, I'm playing Leontis in both of my lists here, for Hammer and Mechanized. Interesting point. That's how many good stratagems they have. These 2 detachments have the best stratagems out of any of the detachments, in my opinion. Even better than Bridgehead. I mean, Bridgehead stratagems are basically, +1 for more damage and 6-inch deep strike, more or less. So, there we go, guys. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you're thinking about buying some models, definitely look into what you want to build, maybe around these detachments. I think they're really strong. And what I would say is plugging in. If you like the content I've talked about, I have a list for every single one of these detachments. I'm going to have a PayPal link down below. You can get in touch with the VOD where I go through every single army. I bring it up on TTS, talk through some play patterns, and it's going to allow you to easily translate that list to the board, see what you like, what playstyles you might be into as well. All right, guys. Peace out. That's been David. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the 40k Fireside. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, drop us a comment, check out the YouTube members area, and we look forward to seeing you again next time by the Fireside.